Hello and welcome to Taking Liberties, episode 22 for the year. We've got a special guest today joining us from Victoria. It's Andy, and he is, what are you, like the
They
president?
pronounce. They pronounce.
What?
They pronounce.
I have no idea what that means.
You're a diversity officer. You've got to know they them pronouns.
Oh, right. Sorry.
I actually meant to say before we started to remind you, Vickers, but that's okay.
No, don't
Well,
worry.
it's not okay. Well,
I was going to say,
it is what it is.
my bad. Sorry, I was trying to get it like, Andy, are you the president of ANZFSFL?
No, Vice-Chairperson. Vice-Chairperson.
Vice-Chairperson, yeah.
Yep.
So I knew you were moving up the ranks. I didn't know how far up. So cool.
You gotta climb those ranks in Students for Liberty, man. Gotta make that bank.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I think we've distracted ourselves too long. And we've got Lee from Perth as usual.
Course, yes.
And you're not even in Perth, just West Australia. But Perth is Perth, right?
I am in Perth, but yes.
Well,
Vickers is 2 from 2 tonight in getting things right. Now let's see if he can understand the topics correctly, or we're going to be talking about, I don't know, like the Martian probe or something, or whatever random weird crap Vickers has decided to talk about.
I do have information on Martian probes, but that's going to be a topic at another time. Sure. The point is, we do have a different kind of probing going on, which is to do with finding out people's opinions on same-sex marriage.
That's a segue. That's good work.
That is a segue, yep. And after that, we'll be discussing another type of probing where a car drove into a whole bunch.
Unrelated events.
Yeah.
Unrelated. I got to work better on my segues, but in Charleston, obviously, the violent clashes that have been occurring between Antifa and fascists.
Yep, KKK, Stormfront.
Yeah.
So here, okay, I feel like we now have the answer of what happens when you mix fascists with anti-fascists, and it's not what I expected would happen. I thought the two would combine, there'd be a massive explosion, and you'd be left with water and salt. That's not what happened. So anyway, yeah. Actually, we'll talk about it first because now I've segued into it anyway. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of days. So I think for a while people were saying this is a far right person that went and crashed the car into the people. Then there were a bunch of people saying no, it's actually a far left person. And then there's a bunch of video that's come out with people with bats hitting the car. So I really don't have much to go on it, except there seems to be a whole bunch of violence going on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when we still, investigate this further, I haven't seen an article that's, explicitly said what the guy's motivation is. I mean, certainly when you look at various attacks on politicians, someone like Jared Lochner when he shot Gabby Giffords a few years back, that was immediately blamed on Sarah Palin and the Tea Party. And
except it turned out he was a registered Democrat.
Same with a lot of these people. So who knows what the actual motivation is? Certainly, the choice of target. It was an explicit act against a group of political people. So it's difficult to imagine it being anything other than some crazed person attacking a particular set of ideas, or what they believe to be a particular set of ideas. So
you say that now, but I get the feeling that we're going to find out that he was running away from a bunch of protesters who were hitting his car with a bat, and then it's eventually going to boil down to, shit, he was just trying to run away from them, and he just happened to pile into a hole.
I only saw a little bit of the footage, but from what I saw, there were like two cars which kind of parading down, and all of a sudden it sped up into the whole group of people.
Yeah.
So I don't think he was really being chased away in that circumstance. Also, it seems to have been unjustifiable for him to go over a whole lot of people. And like be able to connect that up with the people who beat up his car if they did that. Like, it's pretty likely to kill the if it's going to try and kill the people who beat up his car.
So there's the footage that was kind of straight on, like which you just sort of see the people sort of being hit. When there was some footage from the rear, and it was basically the crowd was there, and the person plowed into the crowd. So it wasn't The person wasn't attacked before they. It wasn't like they were going slowly through the crowd and then sped up. No, it was a deliberate attack. It was. I mean, it's no different from any of the other attacks we've seen in Germany and in the UK of people, in France, deliberately driving vehicles into crowds of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just an awful thing, and I guess related to this is like Donald Trump's response, which was weak as all hell. So for those who aren't aware, Donald Trump condemned violence on all sides. Which, I mean, if you want to take a broader view and say, okay, let's look at the last year and what's happened. You've got Berkeley, which, no one got injured, but certainly it was a violent, there was genuine violence, and people had the possibility of, I guess there was the lecturer who was hurt. She, had to go to the hospital with, an injured neck, because she was trying to protect Charles Murray. But it's not to the same extent as what we've seen with this. So, I'm funny. I mean, that's the most charitable interpretation of his words. The fairer probably thing is just he's downplayed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. See, like, the thing is, condemning violence on all sides. I'm sitting there going, like, I remember something very similar coming out of Julia Gillard. Way back in God, what was that thing that happened? I can't remember it now. But it's like condemning on all sides. Actually, a better one, David Cameron, right? David Cameron said the same thing way back in 2001.
About?
Sorry, not 2001. About the London attack.
Oh, the London riots.
Yeah. So, not 2001. Wow, I'm just going. Fuck my memory. It's all gone. It's all gone. But no, actually, so I just remember David Cameron did say the same thing on the London attacks. So, London riot. So,
I think when you put Trump's words in context, though, I mean, if you explicitly have one, if you take all of the other events in the rally, like, for example, like people, for example, some people chucking lighter fluid on each other, and some people shoving and pushing from the Antifa side, often throwing lighter fluid from the kind of the fascist side. Yep. If you put all of those ideas to a side and you just basically say, okay, there was a guy with a car who ran over a crowd of people. There is one act which needs explicit condemnation aside from all the other violence.
Yep.
And if you do have a terrorist attack where a group of people are injured and one person is murdered, and you do not address that, which is kind of what Trump did, I think it's a bit dodgy, especially in the case that Trump has refused to distance himself from David Duke as well. And a lot of the people who were at that rally were proclaiming support for Trump. That's
yeah.
And you can imagine Bannon being upset with this sort of display of kind of power, or sort of raw muscle. So yeah, I imagine
behind the scenes. This is Steve Bannon's wet dream, to be honest.
Yeah,
a whole lot of people. It's like the whole thing that Vox made, or another one of those kind of like intellectualist Facebook video sites. But it was one of them one of the pages did a analysis of all of his films, which arose about strength, power, the need for America to rise up, reclaiming European culture. If you look at all those themes and you apply it to this, which is like a resistance of 1,000 people holding torches, it's probably Steve Bannon's wet dream, especially the idea of them engaging in combat against the left.
Yep. And I mean, if it hadn't been for the car attack, I suspect that there would have actually been sort of violence on both sides. Like, it would have been a lot of shoving and pushing. The actual organizer of the rally held a press conference, I guess today, or in the last 24 hours, and was attacked by protesters. Like, they literally were grabbing him, and the cops had to drag him away and all this kind of stuff. So, I suspect there would have been more of that had it not been for the car. That's obviously overshadowed everything. So,
but I mean, it was also the thing also in all of this is Trump has refused to recognize that the people who were protesting, they weren't just right wingers; they were fascists.
Yeah.
That's the thing in all of it. That's why. That's because I don't.
Yeah, because I
don't like
Nazi flags.
Sorry.
I saw actual Nazi flags, which I found intriguing.
People there. There was the Traditionalist Workers' Party, which is one of the big groups, which Christopher Cantwell's now working with. They're self-professed National Socialists. And I agree with the idea that, like, there was political violence, there was violence on both sides to different extents, but the underlying thing was one side was Nazis and one side wasn't, and that's not being talked about, which I think is, it doesn't excuse political violence, but it changes the nature of it, I think.
Well, I mean, you have people who are avowed communists, right? They do hand out things saying, like, there needs to be communism in America. So it was, for me, it's interesting because it's basically the two totalitarian regimes of the 20th century going head-to-head in Charleston.
A lot of the anti-fascists are anarchists, though, and there are a lot of people who would not be aligning with Marxist-Leninism, and a lot of them would disavow it. So I wouldn't necessarily agree. A lot of the Antifa people there would fall under authoritarianism. Like violence, political violence, I would say, yeah, but I wouldn't call them authoritarians.
I don't know. If you polled a bunch of them about, say, Venezuela, they might sort of defend that kind of thing, or like say it's all the fault of capitalists. Like, I suspect there'd be a lot of sympathy for left-wing authoritarian regimes and less skepticism towards them, and certainly maybe not as strong a condemnation as they would have towards, say, what's going on in Turkey or Hungary or any of the far-right type situations. So
and I'd have to say, okay, so it's been a while since I've really dealt with Antifa, and by that I mean, like, I finished university over 8 years ago. So 7 years ago. So, like, I'm not. We had Antifa University, of course. Really? Yeah. We also had SALT and all those people. But the thing is, so when I was at university, the big thing that SALT was pushing was so there were still people in the socialist alternative that said Stalinism wasn't as bad as people were saying it was.
Yeah.
Right, and they said clearly you need to take out your political opponents, or they'll basically ruin this socialist paradise that you're trying to create. Now, maybe it's fallen out of favor now, because I know it was a declining presence in the socialist alternative back in my day at university. So it's possible that what you're saying is correct, that Stalinism and Leninism have gone out of fashion. But I'd imagine basically, and I realize I'm probably about to cause a great schism in the socialist movement, there'd probably be a lot of support for the revolutionaries in Spain, for example, who did run around basically rounding up, opposing political factions and gunning them down.
I mean, I think it's a bit more complicated because that was a civil war as well. But there would be support. There would be support for the Spanish revolutionaries. I wouldn't think many of the more tanky types of SALT would, because there are people from SALT who hang around Antifa. Yeah. Not Antifa, because Antifa's not actually a group, but Antifa type groups. Yeah. They kind of hang around them, but they generally tend to be Trotskyists or Luxembourgists, so they're generally quite libertarian, or they're in, like, the governmental sense, or they're council communists, so they wouldn't really be there wouldn't be apologism for, like, Venezuela.
No, but that,
or Russia.
Okay. I mean, but they might towards. I think the better question to ask them is about Cuba, right? Because that seems to be where the dividing line tends to pop up.
Actually, a lot of from what I know of Socialist Alternatives brand of Trotskyism, they generally don't like Cuba as a model. Actually, I forgot the reasons why, but they don't really engage with them.
Okay, that's a fair change from when I was in.
I think they've not. I think they have.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Based on that, I don't really want to get into like a discussion of the different socialist brandings. Yeah. No. So we might get into the plebiscite then.
Speaking of socialists.
Speaking of socialists,
can I make one final comment on the Charleston thing? I mean, I think for me, the most disheartening thing, has been essentially, like, I mean, there's always been neo-Nazis and KKK and all these guys, like, there's always been something like this around. But I think to sort of see it come together and is just genuinely just horrifying. To
see them get time on camera too, and to get them proper interviews.
Yeah, I mean, I think Yeah, I mean, I think some of that is just the nature of the event. You know, like it's controversial, and the news is always going to show what's controversial. I mean, for me, this is just going to escalate. Like, I can't see it, de-escalating anytime soon. You know, next time there's going to be a Trump rally, the people are going to come out swinging against, like physically, like the violence I suspect will escalate as well. So that's kind of what's the really horrifying thing for me, is it's like violence begets violence, and this kind of rhetoric will beget further rhetoric on the other side, because they just live to fight each other. I mean, that's part of what I hate so much about this whole thing, is that, like, you've got two groups that are essentially they live to hate, they live to fight each other, and so they just kind of end up spurring each other on. So yeah, that was just my final thoughts. But yeah, let's talk about the plebiscite, because that's not being controversial at all.
No.
It's an interesting topic to talk about, for sure. I mean, it's not like everybody else hasn't been talking about it. So, in case you didn't know and you've been living under a rock, we are now having a plebiscite to determine whether same-sex couples can marry or not. I'm actually upset that we didn't have Tim Wilms on this episode, because it would have been fantastic to get a good spectrum across the board.
Sad. R.I.P. I want to take
I'm sure.
We can plug. I mean, undoubtedly, his own show, like The Unshackled, of course, going to be talking about this. So if you're interested in their views, you can wait. Like, we'll probably try and have Tim on sometime in the near future anyway. Like, we've always been planning to have catch up with him, just cause. But yeah, check out The Unshackled. I think they put out a really serious amount of content. So you could do a lot worse than going to check out their website. So a little plug. Anyway.
Yeah. So $122 million on a non-binding question, which, to be perfectly honest, and this is going to piss off every conservative out there. I think you guys can no longer claim to be fiscal conservatives. I think the term is completely tarnished now, because you're spending $122 million on one decision, right? That is firstly in the it's in the fucking Constitution as a power of the Parliament. And you don't even have a constitutional grounds to say this should involve everyone. Now, I'm not saying that I don't approve of doing things this way. In fact, I'd be happy if we took everything to a plebiscite, so that we get like a nice big plebiscite of like 20 or 30 issues or whatever it is, and you just like go, yep, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, just put down the entire list, and you send that off to Parliament, and they vote accordingly. In fact, hell, why even bother with a Parliament? Let's just make the plebiscites binding. To me, that would be the ideal way to do things. But seeing as we're spending $122 million on this thing, I'm actually a little bit disappointed that we haven't seen what the question is.
Or even what... Do we know exactly what we're voting on in terms of what same-sex marriage will entail?
No, and we're not voting on the bill either. So this is the other thing. This is the other thing. On purpose, the no side objected to the idea of pushing a bill first, right?
Of course.
Of pushing a bill first, right? That spells out exactly what same-sex marriage means.
Yeah.
And then the ascension of that bill would be variant on the plebiscite. Now, to me, that was Ensch's plan, and I think that's the smart way to go about it. In fact, if you actually take a look at the way conservatives argued, that's precisely what they argued with the Republic. They said, no, let's not vote for the idea of Republic. Let's vote for a specific model of the Republic, right? And Republicans were crying and pissing over the moon that, hey, this effectively neutered their ability to argue, hey, do you like the idea of a Republic? And let's talk about what models of the Republic we can have. I
mean, they could put forward a specific model in the question. I mean, because the thing is, this is not a bill that's going before Parliament, so they can make the question whatever they want. And they could just make it. I mean, the simplest version of this question is do you support gay marriage or not? Same-sex marriage or not? And the simplest version of the legislation just needs to repeal the Marriage Amendment Act of 2004.
Of 2004,
and that just strikes out all of that language that was added in, and problem solve it. Like, it's not a hard problem to fix.
No, it's not. No, and David Leinhelm has brought that up several times. It's literally just, if you just repealed 2004's amendment, right, you would have gay marriage tomorrow. That's the entire reason they brought it in.
Yeah.
Oh wait, but if you were going to bring in religious exemptions, how would you bring it about?
Well, then you'd have to have an amendment to the Sexual Discrimination Act of
Right.
84, and you just put them. I mean, they've already had those exemptions in. There's various anti-discrimination legislation had exemptions in them, and Labor's tried to take some of them out over the time. So it's not hard to figure that out. That's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
But
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So the legislative approach to all this is like easy peasy. Like they could do it. It's not
tomorrow
like it's
afternoon if they
they could do it
to.
tomorrow afternoon. Like it's not like they'd need a 1,000-page bill to resolve this. Like it's just essentially repeal 2004, add in an exemption that's similar to all the other exemptions they have.
I mean, New Zealand did it really easily. Like we just had, but I think we had to put it through a ballot box and it got drawn out. Because New Zealand, if you have to push a private member's bill and it gets put through a secret ballot.
Okay.
And then it got pulled out by random, and then it passed easily, like through 3 rounds in our one parliament. It just passed, and 77 to 44, we got it, and it was really easy.
Yeah. So the thing is, and I've been, and people have rightfully pointed out that I'm possibly wrong on this. If you take a look at the No campaign that occurred in Ireland, a lot of the No campaign that they're running right now is basically the same one that they ran in Ireland, and the Irish one was the same one that they ran in California against Prop 8. Now, in Prop 8, they were really successful, right? Because
lost.
No,
Yeah.
they won. No, they won Prop 8. Prop 8 was in 2008. They lost ultimately.
Oh, the No campaign. Sorry, yeah, I'm confused. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm thinking the No campaign is in. Yeah, it's alright. It's all good.
Yeah, sorry. The No. Sorry. Yes, Prop 8. They were successful. They got gay marriage outlawed in California in 2008. Now they used the same campaign, so it was all about religious liberty, and they were going like, it's a deeply Catholic country. They're obviously going to care about that. So they went family, religious liberty, and what was the third one? Family, and stopping adoption, right? Now, that didn't quite translate in Ireland. In fact, it was stomped on. In Ireland, it was 62 to 37% or something like that. And you wouldn't expect it because it's a conservative Catholic country. But the reason why it failed is they'd already allowed gay adoption, right? So they didn't really have a ground to stand on there. The anti-discrimination angle was weak to begin with because, it's a fairly Catholic country. It's not like their anti-discrimination laws are targeting the church as of yet. And the children one, the children one is actually quite fantastic if you already happen to buy into it. If you already happen to buy into, marriage is all about protecting the children. The only problem is it's not actually true, right? We don't stop. So, we don't stop couples that can't have babies from getting married. So it's a very easy one to sort of just go.
We also don't take the children off gay couples that do have kids. So, if a woman has a couple of kids and then moves in with her girlfriend or wife, it's not like the Child Protective Service show up and takes them away because we need to protect the children. And I'm glad that they don't. Like, for the record, I don't.
We also don't, like, if you think about it, the only other people we stop from keeping their children are people who literally abuse their children.
Yeah.
Like, great idea, guys. Let's put queer people on the same standards as people who actually abuse their children.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't have the government manufacture societies so that people raise perfect children.
So this is actually an argument I've had several times over the last couple of days. Is that so the children one is particularly compelling, which is why I'm glad Tony Abbott opened up with the salvo of anti-PC, which I think is actually their strongest argument, for 2 reasons. Firstly, there is a large component of the LGBTIQBBA. What is it now?
LGBTIQA is. Yeah, you got it. LGBTIQA.
Ah, fantastic. Okay. I'm playing alphabet soup here. But anyway, so there is a section of that community that is quite authoritarian and does want to impose certain things on certain segments of the population. Now, to the extent of what that means, it's different, varying on each person. Not everyone is a Ros Ward. So it's their best argument because people can see it and it's visible. And we've seen things like from the United States where the bakery was effectively forced to bake a cake for a homosexual couple. That resonates with people. Even people who are extremely pro-gay marriage don't like the idea of, hey, you can't force me to do stuff for you, right? Just because you want equal treatment doesn't mean you can force me to behave in a certain way to you. Now, that coupled with like a almost it's time sort of thing might be enough to give the no vote a chance of winning.
It's just still such a stupid argument, because we could have said this about interracial marriage too. That suddenly it's only queer people who are going to be using government force against businesses.
Yeah.
It just seems a bit funny, and also to request religious exemption only for marriage seems a bit funny, odd.
Yeah.
I mean, that's inherently a problem though about having anti-discrimination legislation. I'm sure all three of us would agree that anti-discrimination legislation, anything that forces people to associate, is a bad idea.
Yeah.
But broadly, I'm a little bit shaky in some circumstances, like workers, to an increasing extent because of power imbalances. But I will completely agree on the consumer side.
I actually think workers benefit more by not having it, because if you think about it, who the fuck wants to work for a racist?
But who wants to survive? If you've not got enough options.
No. So see, here's the thing. You're looking at this from an academic perspective. What happens in the real world, right? Is if
come on, they're linked.
No,
they're in practice inherently linked.
No, practice is not. No. Yeah. So listen. If a racist is forced to hire someone, right, against their will because of anti-discrimination legislation, what actually happens is the guy is going to try and find any way to get rid of the guy. He will make that guy's experience at that workplace a living hell to do it, right? The effect is still the same. All you've done is prolong and also got the worker to leave on their own accord, right? And there are loads of things you can do to get there.
That doesn't. But I'm saying, there are many cases though. Instead of having to be outright about it, a lot of times it can just be toned down, and you don't have to express biases against that person in the workplace, or you can just keep it out of your workplace.
You mean racist out of the workplace?
You basically keep racist attitudes, homophobic attitudes out of your work, and just make it a point of non-discussion. Because even for people who just need to get by, that can just be a suitable way of doing it. And also a general thing of governments setting a precedent or signaling.
That's terrible. You can't virtue. That's the devil.
No. So. Okay,
we should actually save this maybe discussion for a later time.
Yeah.
I actually have an interesting thing that I'd like to add to the conversation, but we're at 28 minutes and we probably want to wrap up in the next 5. So let's get back to the marriage thing.
Sure.
I mean,
okay, sure.
So can I have a bit of a rant? Can I get my little bugbear off my chest?
Why don't you just take the next 2 minutes, because I have nothing to say.
Okay. Well, I'm probably going to do a separate video on bad arguments against legalization of same-sex marriage from particularly from conservative and libertarians, because they're kind of my people, and I'm seeing very similar arguments, and all of them are really bad arguments, and I wish they didn't do it. I'm open to the possibility of hearing interesting, strong arguments against same-sex marriage and discussing them, for mutual edification, but I find most of the arguments to be really kind of weak, and which is unfortunate. And I think part of that is because their position is actually weak. I think it's actually just an inherent flaw in what they're trying to argue.
Yep.
So first thing I want to say is I'm going to hopefully have an article out in the next week or two, pitching at Christians why they should vote for same-sex marriage. But the thing I want to get at is this notion of this is adding to laws. So I think
oh my god.
Yeah, I know. I've just wanted to smash my keyboard so much in the last weekend. So there's this whole notion that by legalizing same-sex marriage, you're essentially adding to you're adding legislation. Okay, first thing, you're taking words out of legislation, not adding them in. Like the whole problem the whole reason this exists is because John Howard added words to the Marriage Act in the Marriage Amendment Act of 2004. So this is a problem that conservatives have created for themselves by adding words to legislation. Now, libertarians, generally speaking, if you take words out of legislation, that's a good thing. That's reducing the size of government.
We tend to call that deregulation.
Yes, that is. But for some reason, it's not deregulation. It's adding to laws. And I want to get at this whole secondary consequences thing, because this has been bugging me the most. And there's particularly very intelligent, well-regarded people in the libertarian movement who have been putting this forward all weekend, and it's driven me crazy because they never would answer the challenge which I put forward to them, which is libertarians don't normally work by saying, oh, well, this is going to have a negative effect because of some other legislation, therefore we're not going to do this thing. So I pointed out to, we give the example of the nanny state. We say, well, if you drink or smoke, we're not going to, the government might want to try and tax you or somehow inhibit your ability to get access to medical care because of the choices you've made. And we as libertarians say, well, no, the problem is with welfare. That's a separate thing. You don't solve that by creating more bad rules to deal with this bad regulation. So the bad regulation is the Sex Discrimination Act of 1984. We can have a discussion later whether it really is that bad. But nevertheless, we'd say mostly it's not a good thing. The consequence of that is when we deregulate marriage, it might tie up some people, potentially, maybe, possibly some people in that little mess. But that's not a reason to stop the deregulation. That's not a real argument.
It's part of a whole line of stuff, though. This is also always a line which is brought up when immigration is discussed.
Yes,
it's always, but as long as we have a welfare state. And it's like, oh yeah, we have a welfare state, therefore we're going to shut up all of our borders. And no, we're going to shut up all of our borders.
We have a welfare state, so we need communism now.
Yes.
Oh, right, sorry. And that's right, and that's when we move to one state communism, one nation communism. Yeah. Stalinism, right.
Yeah, so I'll agree with you. That is the worst argument I've ever heard on the no side. But there are actually some really bad arguments on the yes side as well. And actually, my favorite one of those is love is love. And I kind of sit there. It's so cringeworthy. If you are one of those people saying love is love, for fuck's sake, shut the fuck up. You are probably right now the biggest chance.
Everybody at the project is very mad with you right now because your brown skin won't protect you from their scorn.
Well, I would say me appearing on the project and having Waleed Ali fillet me is probably the best argument for yes. So,
that's an image that will never leave my mind. Thanks for that. That should become the slogan of this show. I'm gonna put that in the title of the podcast.
Oh no!
I want to. I'm gonna go there. I want to spare the world, but I can't.
Man, that was even one of those things where it was after I said it and went like, wait, what? Anyway, coming back to the topic, yes, love is love is a very bad argument. The other one that's of a similar vein is It's Time. Now, that might have worked in 1972 for Gough Whitlam after 28 fucking years of Liberal government. Doesn't quite work today, okay? You can say that till your face is blue. It is not going to convince anyone to vote yes.
I mean, make no mistake though. These aren't arguments. They're just buzzwords. Like they're just talking point lines they roll out, I guess.
Yeah,
and no one really goes out and says, "Oh, but didn't you know that love is love?"
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
I mean, let's go to a topic that we touched on today on Facebook, Andy, which was about the whole notion of virtue signaling. And this whole thing is just constantly about virtue signaling on all sides. Like this is not just libertarians or conservatives or progressive. Like everybody is using this issue to virtue signal because firstly that's what humans do, but also it's the easiest thing to do. Like it's hard to persuade people to change their mind. It's easy just to say, this is my view, this is my view, this is my view. And to an extent, I mean, I'm guilty of that. Like, I just say, this is what I think. I mean, I hope that I would persuade people. But I think for a lot of people, they just say stuff just to say stuff. And it's like it's ships passing in the night. You know, they're not talking, they're talking at each other rather than to each other. And I mean, I don't think there's an easy fix to that because I think the challenge of persuasion is, like, incredibly hard. So
I just think, to be honest, if I can be completely honest, I think it's got to the point where there's not much more I can say, because I think everyone knows the fucking arguments by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what the yes side says. Everyone knows what the no side said. If you're a libertarian, there's a little bit of niggly areas, but really, I don't know what more I can say, because everyone knows what people are going to say.
So I haven't engaged in the virtue signaling on this particular one. I've been engaged in
classic intolerant Vickers.
Yeah.
He's a better person than us, Andy. You just need to admit it.
I'm out.
Yeah. No, but I've been engaging in the market signaling, and I've been going like, I'm sorry, I will vote yes on the condition that I am. I will vote on the condition that I'm handed a bucket of Coronas. So Ticey again. So Michael Tice, if you're watching this, bucket of Coronas, please. And
I can't vote.
Yeah, but
maybe you can buy his vote off him. Andy.
Yeah. You just have to buy me a bucket of Coronas.
He's easy. He's really easy.
Look, as a student on a low, clearly exploitation. Really.
Well, it's funny because I got asked, why a bucket of Coronas, and I went like, well, Corona's the gayest beer I know, and it comes in buckets.
Well, that's an argument you can't argue against. I think that's a good point to leave it. I think that's the peak. We've hit the summit. That's it. Everyone should just watch this show, and it's over.
This is trying to make me think now. What's a gay beer? I don't know. I guess Corona is one of the more gay ones. Yeah.
I honestly can't think of a gayer beer. I'm sitting there. I had this, I was literally thinking, what is the gayest beer I could think of? And Corona came to mind. By the way, if you are a marketing person at Corona, for Corona, whoever distributes Corona, you should totally get on that. Because people more than likely... Sure. Yeah, because people more than likely already think of your beer as gay.
Yeah. Okay, that's gonna be the title for the show, The Gayest Beer. That will be the show.
Then you're gonna have the conservative break come along and go, Corona has been forced to take on the gay lobbyist campaigns. and then claim that Corona are being held hostage by people from Equal Love. Yeah. So
I think it's more than likely that Taking Liberties just assigned them as being the gay beer.
Yeah.
I just went with it.
We're just going to put little stickers on the beer saying, as heard on Taking Liberties Radio, the gayest beer.
Corona didn't start Taking Liberties sponsorship now.
Yeah,
yeah, you should definitely get you should definitely get your boyfriend and all of them to just go buying Coronas. And it's just why is everyone buying Coronas now? It's the gayest beer, man.
Nah, he throws up when he drinks beer, so.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeast allergies.
Fair enough.
Let's wrap this one off, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. When we're talking about yeast allergies, I think we need to call it quits.
Yeah.
I guess we'll be back next week, and we'll probably talk about the Google memo, because, we didn't talk about it this week, and I think 2 weeks in between, the actual news coming out and when we actually discuss it is a good length to let everything percolate. So,
it's been a busy week.
Catch everyone. Yeah. So catch everyone next week. Actually, I don't think I'll be there. No, I'll make an effort.
Okay.
All right. See you, everyone.
All right. Catch you.
Bye.